Those are the people that whisper to me in the streets about these conversations. It's the 40 to 55-year-old mother who has a son who doesn't feel like she can speak up, but says to me privately that she's worried about her kids. And actually, we had some mothers write in, all of which wanted to stay anonymous, saying this exact same thing. They've got an 18-year-old son, they're super concerned. They've got a 16-year-old son, the son looks lost. As the stats show from the report, they're not leaving home in the same way that women, their daughters leave home, but they don't know what to do about it. So for those parents that are listening now, we can't change society. What would you recommend a parent of a young boy does?
First thing is forgive yourself. There's this natural part of a separation where, and I think this is true of girls, but especially boys, where to make the separation easier, we don't get along with our parents in our senior year in high school. And that doesn't mean your son doesn't love you. That doesn't mean your son's not going to figure it out. But to forgive yourself, but going back to more actionable things, try and get men involved in his life. And then, dumb stuff like my mom made sure I was in Boy Scouts. My mom, when I got cut from the high school basketball and football team, she enrolled me in city leagues so I could continue to play sports. But it was mostly, she always ensured that I had men in my life. And I think that was really, really important for me. But, I would just say that I feel like I need to coach men more. What I say to boys, one of the first things I say to boys, I had lunch with, and it happens every, I had lunch with someone who's a fairly famous news anchor and her son. And I asked the mom to excuse, they started going at it. And I asked the mom to excuse herself. And I said to the mom, I'm like, you realize this is the only person in your life ever that wants you to be more successful than you. You just got to cut this shit out. This woman is not your enemy. And I heard that, and I was a bit ashamed because I remember being such an asshole to my mother, So I think I could say that to him because I could look him in the eyes and say, "What the fuck are you doing?" So I just think that male involvement for single mothers. And I think men are really willing to get involved, whether it's someone down the street, a coach, a sibling, your brother, whatever it is. But I do think, again, the research shows that the point of failure is when a boy loses a male role model. And also to forgive yourself. Being a single parent with a son, I think that's hard. I just think it's hard.
Logan, you've got some questions I can see written
Oh,
on that piece of
yeah.
paper.
I do have some questions for Scott, but I would love for you to answer them too. So one of them is, what is something about being a man that you learned growing up that you have had to unlearn? And I'm wondering specifically in how you're raising your sons to avoid some of those things.
I think a great proxy for masculinity and manhood is, and Richard Reeves introduced me to this, I think it's so powerful, and that is surplus value. It's not about a religious ceremony. It's not about having sex. It's not about an age. It's about getting to the point of surplus value. You create more tax revenue than you absorb. I say to my boys, you're negative value. Look at all the resources going into you. Look at all the love. We love you so much more than you love us. Your teachers are spending all this time and energy, and you aren't giving anything back. At some point, that needs to pivot. So creating more tax revenue, noticing people's life, registering more complaints from other people than you are complaining, protecting people, adding surplus value. So, these notions that, and I wasn't that guy. I wanted more from everyone else than I was giving. I was the guy when someone honked at me, I was the guy that sped up and honked back to restore the universe to its place. If a ticket counter agent at the airline counter was rude to me, I needed to get back in their face to restore harmony to the universe because I'm a fucking baller. And what you realize is being a man is occasionally taking a hit, right? It's having surplus value. It's noticing people's lives. It's listening to complaints. It's occasionally thinking, well, maybe this person who cut me off in traffic, I don't know what's going on with them. Maybe their kid has diabetes. Maybe they're going through a divorce. It's adding more value than you're taking. And until the age of 40, I looked at every relationship. Am I getting more out of this than I'm giving? And if I'm not, I'm out. And what you realize is good business partnerships You add as much or more value than your partners. Good relationships, you witness the person's life. You make them feel fucking awesome. If you leave this world a little bit in debt, that's the whole point. That's the whole point. Or a little bit, the world's in debt to you. That's the win. And I used to think as a young man, that meant I needed to exit the relationship. I'm not getting more money or services than I'm giving. I'm not getting more kindness than I'm not giving. I'm not getting more hot experiences with this romantic partner than they're giving me. I'm out. No, it's the other way around. Being a man is surplus value.
Yeah, I've never thought about that before, but it's so true that, like, as a man, you should aspire to be considered generous. And actually, the first time someone called me generous was like such an unbelievably wonderful compliment to me, because it means that people see you as someone that's giving things. But to answer your question, for me, it was just a willingness to express my emotions when I'm struggling. That's always been the difficult thing for me, especially because of everything I've said earlier about wanting to be strong, wanting to be a provider. There are going to be moments where, regardless of how well you play the game of life, you're going to struggle. And I did not have the tools. I still really don't have great tools for this, but to turn to someone and say, I'm really struggling with this, and not to feel emasculated. And I would say that because as a man, pretty much the only person you have in your life typically that you can turn to is your romantic partner. That's also the last person you want to turn to and say you're struggling. Because again, for me, that felt like I was being emasculated. So I remember the day very vividly when I was like 30 years old, turning to my girlfriend and like running the experiment of letting her know that I was struggling with something and how difficult that was. But the only reason I did it was because I almost felt like I had no fucking choice. I'd like gotten to the point where I was like, I need to tell someone this. And she was the only person. And I still don't think I tell my guy friends everything. I would tell them some things, but I don't think I tell them everything. And when I look at the stats around mental health and depression, which are absolutely horrific, and some of these quotes that we had from some of the guys that wrote into the show, this guy, Liam, said, for me, the biggest challenge that young men face today is I feel like I'm striving for meaning, but I can't find it anywhere. I struggle to even sleep at night with some form of substance because my brain is constantly firing different scenarios at me that I'm failing in my life. When I am alone with my thoughts, it's like having a never-ending lesson about how useless I am and how I need to change everything in my life. And the hardest part is I can't even tell anybody this because I would feel weak. And then this guy, Jeffrey, wrote in and said, my entire life, I have never felt like I was good enough, like I could never earn my place in society. And even though I think I've achieved some things by the age of 18, I still feel like deep inside, I will never be enough and I'm still not enough and I can't tell anybody. And I think that's a problem that's quite unique to men. It might be a problem unique to my upbringing, but I just don't have the tools. So when I look at the stats around depression and men killing themselves, 75% of suicides in the UK are men, and 75% of them worldwide are men. And suicide, as you said, I think earlier, is the leading cause of death amongst young men in 50 countries. Yeah, if you feel that meaningless and you feel that worthless and you don't have anyone to console about it, to maybe tell you that you're wrong, you know.
That's why when Scott said that you don't necessarily buy the research that women are looking for someone who's emotionally intelligent, fine, then don't do it for your partner, do it for yourself.
Yeah.
I just saw the stand-up special by Kumail Nanjiani. I'm sure it'll like come out on streaming soon, but the last 20 minutes was pretty incredible. It basically turned from like sort of silly stand-up into kind of like his TED Talk. So he told this amazing story about how one day he was speaking to the press and he said, I started to go to therapy when there were a bunch of bad reviews about my movie because I realized so much of my identity was tied up in external factors. And this turned into headlines around the world that said bad reviews land Kumail Nanjiani in therapy. And he was really frustrated by this. So in the stand-up special, he took the 5 most popular things that people said criticizing him, and he broke down each one. So for example, one of them was, oh, boo-hoo, poor, super rich movie star feels sad about bad reviews. We should all feel sad for him. And he's like, no, you don't have to feel sad for me, but I can feel sad for me. And he went through all these things and he talked about his therapy journey and how before therapy, he thought, I just don't experience negative emotions. I don't experience sadness. And through therapy, he understood, oh, I experience sadness all the time, but I don't allow myself to feel it. So it just comes out as anger. So he told a story about talking to his dad on the phone. His dad had just been in a car accident, but was fine. And then he helped his dad through that experience. And then a few hours later, he's like, where the fuck is my Ninja Turtle t-shirt? And it's like he needed therapy to explain to him he's not upset about the t-shirt, he's upset about his dad. But I think that the fact that he, in his 40s or however old he is, had to learn that, it makes me feel like everyone needs to learn that. If it's not for a romantic partner, then it's for yourself, because life sucks if you can't cry, you can't express emotions, you don't have people to talk to. And so forget about attracting a mate, just not killing yourself, just being a happier person. I think we just need more room for men to express emotions.
The first time I went to a therapist was when I was about 30, 31. And I put it off for so fucking long for this reason, because every part of it made me feel like emasculated. And as a man, you're like, I know I can deal with everything myself and I've got this. Like I said, when the bus comes, I put my hand in front of my girlfriend. I'm always the protector. So when you find yourself in a position like these men who've written into the show, where you feel meaningless or you feel hopeless or there's some other challenge in your life, you think it's your job to fix. Well, I thought it was like my job to fix. And also, like, maybe because I've been a CEO since the age of 18, I'm always like holding fort for everybody. So you learn to like keep a fucking straight face.
Right.
The business is on fire. We have no money to pay 170 people's wages and it's Friday and they're expecting, like, you learn this skill of like numbness, and that doesn't serve you when you're trying to resolve something. And this is why I think porn, gambling addiction become the avenue, because there's not another avenue to sort of take pressure off the pressure valve. So yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult.
The email you just read from that young man, I've stopped, and it sounds crass, I can't handle the emails I get anymore.
Wow.
I'm getting so many emails from young men who are just, I mean, you read an email like that and you just like, it's devastating. I haven't gotten over the death of my father. I'm living alone. I've become addicted to I mean, you just hear this shit. Like, I know I have value to add. I just can't figure it out. Or, I mean, there's just so many of these men out there. And I think a lot of it is, I always look to economics. I'm like, we've got to figure out vocational programming. I think we should have national service so people feel a sense of identity and connection and purpose. Some of the lowest levels of young adult depression are in Israel, despite all the existential threats, because they all serve in the IDF for 2 to 3 years. I think we need more freshman seats at colleges. I think we need more third places where people, I think a lot of it comes down to economics and policy programs. I think there's a lot we can do to help young men. But in the US, it's now 77% moving to 80% suicides. It's 4 to 1. If there was any special interest group, you go into a morgue in America and 5 people die by suicide, 4 are men. If that was any other special interest group versus the control group, they'd weigh in with programs. But because of the enormous advantage I registered, and let's be honest, it was enormous. Basically, all prosperity in America, which was unprecedented, was crammed into 30% of the population, basically white males. So we just had staggering advantage. And now 19-year-old males are paying the price for my advantage. There's really a lack of empathy for them. And what I do think is hopeful is that mothers and women in society now realize that the country and women are not going to continue to flourish if men are flailing. And it finally feels like we're having a real program. The governor of Maryland, Wes Moore, has said that his focus for his administration, this is a governor of a state, a liberal state, is going to be on helping the state's young men. I mean, that took such fucking balls for him to say that. And you know what? The populace received it well, because on the ground, people are feeling it. They're really feeling how much young men are struggling. So I'm actually quite hopeful that we've turned a corner in terms of the dialogue. Because when I started talking about this 4 or 5 years ago, right away, oh, you're misogynist. Your hair wasn't on fire when women were, I mean, just, there was such a gag reflex. It has changed so dramatically in the last 4 or 5 years.
Where do we send these guys?
That's a great question. And I wish I had a list of resources. I'm trying to assemble it around, all right. I mean, I'm involved with it because it's difficult to discern between ordinary young adult or adolescent problems and when a kid's suicidal. I wish I had some sort of AI filter that would go, this kid needs help right away.
Mm-hmm.
Like here are some resources. Here are some men's groups. And I do a shitty job. I can't talk to all of them. A couple of them, I take the lazy way. I say, here's $500, do BetterHelp online therapy. I'll pay for your first 4 sessions.
Yeah.
But I gotta be honest, I don't know.
I mean, I think we should put together this list of resources. And I feel like there are good guys out there. I put Chris Williamson in this group. I put both of you out there. Podcasts are how a lot of modern wisdom is being expressed right now, right? You don't go to church, you get your sermon through your AirPods. So like, who are the guys that are saying healthy things? And I feel like if we can fill their ears with the healthy messages of masculinity, we are taking away the space and the attention from the people that are really profiting from these negative messages. I think you need a place to send the people who email
Yeah.
you.
And I appreciate the offer and we should do this, but we should have a list that says, all right, what are you struggling with? And here's some resources or things you should think about.
But even what you both said to my answer or to my question around like, what's the boot camp or what would you tell guys? Like, that's not a crazy list. I think it's like for a lot of these guys to have you as sort of a male role model of like, go to the gym, make money, be kind, look out for others. Like, I just feel like that can be condensed into, and maybe that's what your new book is, but like truly, I think people are looking for a script with the lack of religion, lack of institution. We've lost all these scripts that tell people what to do. Let's write a new script.
It's on you, brother. You're younger. You got more tread on you. Look at all these cameras.
I mean, somebody's going to watch this and pull it together into all of your advice. But I'm just saying,
I like the idea of a collective.
it needs to get out there because if you don't fill the space, somebody else will, and they already are. And it's not the messages that you want to have the next population, the next generation having.
I agree. We'll talk about this off camera.
1, 2, 3. Men.
Man.
Anything else you wanted to ask us? I know you're Scott's a hero of yours, so if you've got any other questions you wanted to ask.
No, I'm just really glad that we're having this conversation. I feel like maybe I wouldn't have had this conversation a year ago. I do think the tide is turning. I think the title of the report as Lost Boys is very helpful. And I just want to end with the message that women don't have to do worse when men do better and vice versa. And let's raise up everyone so that we're all thriving. And yeah, let's help these lost boys and also help women.
Any closing points you wanted to add, Scott?
Well, just a message to young people in general. The arc of happiness is a smile, and that is kind of 0 to 18 is prom, football, making out. It's generally pretty happy. The least happy years for people are usually kind of 18 to 45. Economic stress, relationships are hard. You probably are someone you love a great deal, gets sick and dies. And if you're struggling, what I would just say is, don't be afraid to reach out for help, but also realize that if you're not a member of parliament and you don't have a fragrance named after you, it doesn't mean you're failing. And to forgive yourself and to recognize that those are tough years. When my first kid was born, I tell this story a lot. It's supposed to be angels singing and bright lights. I felt nothing but shame. I was 42 and I was broke. I had put everything into my tech company. Great financial recession came along. I think my accountant called me and said, you're worth a negative $2 million. If we look at your debts, you're worth negative $2 million. And about that time, my oldest son had the poor judgment to come rotating out of my girlfriend. And all I felt with this kid was shame. I have failed. I've failed myself. And now I failed on an entirely new dimension as a provider and a father. That was the first thing I felt when my son was born. And I wrote about it. And I can't tell you how many men I heard from that all I felt when I had my first kid or kids was a sense of embarrassment and that I was already failing.
That energy that you felt at that moment, did you channel it into something or were you tempted? Nausea.
I was in the delivery room. And they were more worried about me, and they thought it was because I was grossed out by birthing. It was because I was so ashamed. I would just immediately felt like, oh my God, how did I put myself in a position where I'm a terrible provider on day one? I just felt a tremendous amount of shame. And I think most people, when you talk to them at some point, have felt really down and really like embarrassed. And I just don't think that's anything unusual. And you want to forgive yourself. You want to say to yourself, I can add value to a company. I can make someone very happy, and try and surround yourself with people that make you feel good about yourself. And every day, just little baby steps, write some things down, try and exercise, trying to eat well. I can tell when I'm getting depressed, and I have this method of getting out of it. I call it SCAFA, SCAFA, sweat. It's like resets my operating system, clean, try and eat really well at home, abstinence. And when I say abstinence from pot and alcohol, both of which I love, and I'm really good at them. They add value to my life, but when I'm not feeling good, I take them out of my life because whatever's going on with my sensors, I just don't want to mess with them. F is family. I find being around my boys is really important. And then A is affection. I find affection being around, even if it's my dog's laying on me or my boys. I'll say to my boys, let's watch TV, and my boys instinctively throw their legs on mine. Not necessarily sex, but affection with my partner. Those are the things that get me out of a dark place. So try and figure out, if you can, what things help you get out of a dark place. But recognize everyone struggles. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't reach out and find help, but everything online is telling you should be in a Gulfstream and partying in St. Bart's. No, that's not the real world. And try and build a support system, and also forgive yourself. Happiness is a smile. Kind of 20 to 45 is usually, it's full of a lot of joy, but it's also full of oftentimes a lot of anxiety.
If you love the Diary of a CEO brand and you watch this channel, please do me a huge favor. Become part of the 15% of the viewers on this channel that have hit the subscribe button. It helps us tremendously, and the bigger the channel gets, the bigger the guests.